Attorney General, would you agree that it is important for law enforcement leaders to be honest?
Of course, as well as members of Congress.
Thank you. And would you include yourself as a law enforcement leader?
Of course.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. You know, President Trump has also, he has referred to himself as the chief law enforcement officer of this country. So do you believe that President Trump is honest?
He is the commander-in-chief of the United States of America, and
not
only is he keeping this country safe, he is keeping this world safe.
It's a simple question, which you didn't answer.
He is the commander-in-chief.
Last June, Minnesota lawmaker Melissa Hortman, her husband Mark, and their dog were brutally murdered in their home. And your USA's office in Minnesota investigated this crime and obtained a 6-count indictment of the murder suspect, stating that he had intent to kill, injure, harass, and intimidate Minnesota legislators. And I have the copy right here. I read through it. Yet a few weeks ago, President Trump suggested publicly that Minnesota Governor Tim Walz was behind these murders, posting on his Truth Social account a video raising this conspiracy theory. And it wasn't true. And you know it wasn't true, or else you would not have brought an indictment against the subject. Do you know what else Trump has said? He has said he has cut gas prices by 1,400%. False. That he won the 2020 election.
Actually, gas is down to $1.99 a gallon, thanks to President Trump.
That he didn't know Epstein.
Maybe $5 in California.
It's my time, Mr. Chair. That he sent water to LA during the wildfires. False. That Governor Westmore of Maryland called him the greatest president of his lifetime. False. So many tales, too many to keep up. But I want to go back to what he said about Tim Walz. Do you agree that President Trump undermined public trust in law enforcement by suggesting that Governor Walz was involved in the Hortman murders?
I am not familiar with that statement.
Well, that is a disappointing response, and it is also why your office and Donald Trump have zero credibility, because I know, and you know, it was a right-wing extremist who murdered the Hortmans. And you and the president are being dishonest with the American people. Last fall, after the horrific shooting of Charlie Kirk, President Trump was asked if there were extremists on both the left and the right. And his exact words were, "I'll tell you something that's going to get me in trouble, but I couldn't care less. The radicals on the right oftentimes are radical because they don't want to see crime. The radicals on the left are the problem, and they're vicious, and they're horrible, and they're politically savvy." Do you agree with this statement? You're taking too long, Madam Attorney General. But you know the answer, because your own department has addressed the question. In 24, the DOJ's research arm issued a report on domestic terrorism, stating that the number of far-right attacks continues to outpace all other types of terrorism and domestic violence extremists. The DOJ published the report, and after the president made those comments, the DOJ took the report down.
You could feel the disappointment hit before she even said it. And when she did, it wasn't just disappointment. It was accusation. Not loud, not chaotic, but cutting. Because now she wasn't just questioning statements anymore. She was questioning credibility, saying what many in that room probably didn't want said out loud, that people already knew the truth, and choosing not to acknowledge it was its own kind of dishonesty. Then she widened the lens. Extremism, violence, the narratives around it. And again, she didn't just speak from emotion. She brought receipts, reports, data, findings from the very department being defended. Far-right extremism, she pointed out, had been responsible for more attacks, more harm. But that information had disappeared, removed, and that's when her frustration turned into something more urgent. Not just why was it removed, but what are you trying to hide? When the response tried to pivot, Shift the focus somewhere safer. She cut it off immediately.
And I sent you a letter asking you a simple question. Why did the Justice Department remove the data that shows right-wing extremists have killed more innocent people than left-wing extremists?
Did you refer to immigration enforcement as domestic terrorism?
You should answer my question. Yes. You're on my time, but you won't. And what I am asking you to do is put the report back. Restore the data. Stop scrubbing important data from your website. Stop taking down reports that you know the American people need to know about. There are violent, dangerous people out here with real threats, and the dishonesty from your agency comes from the covering up of these threats that could hurt American people and put our lives at risk. Do better.
Reports, data, findings from the very department being defended, far-right extremism, she pointed out, had been responsible for more attacks, more harm, but that information had disappeared, removed, and that's when her frustration turned into something more urgent. Not just why was it removed, but what are you trying to hide? When the response tried to pivot, shift the focus somewhere safer, she cut it off immediately. You should answer my question. There was no hesitation anymore, no room for deflection, and at that point, it didn't even feel like she expected an answer. It felt like she wanted the silence to speak for itself. By the end, the message was unmistakable. Put the data back. Stop hiding information. Stop pretending the threats aren't real. Because out there, beyond that room, people's lives are affected by what gets acknowledged and what gets buried. When she finally yielded back, the words hung in the air longer than they should have. And I sat there thinking, this wasn't just another hearing. It was a fight over something much bigger than politics. It was a fight over what people are allowed to believe is true.